cabbages outside and we're hardening them off. And there's a couple of purposes to this, actually, in this situation especially. The cabbages are what are going in the new extension that we talked about in a previous vlog. As you can see, some of them have got quite large in the polytunnel. And so when I saw that yesterday, I realised that we won't have the beds ready that soon, considering how much work there is to do. So I just put these kind of temporary tables up here outside as a way of bringing the cabbages out. We're going to leave them out even overnight. We wouldn't do this with a lot of other plants because it might be a bit too harsh on them with the evening temperatures, but the cabbages should do fine. We're leaving them out and it's a way of basically slowing down the growth, but also the purpose of hardening off usually is to basically bring the plant out of the polytunnel during the day and bring it back in at night for a few days consecutively. And that really acclimatizes it basically to the outdoor weather, ready for when you plant it out. So with some of our plants, we just cover them with fleece, and that kind of takes away so much need to acclimatize them to the outdoor world because the fleece insulates the bed. For example, with the Monge 2 that are over at the end there, because we're going to put them on a support, we won't be able to fleece them. So James has been bringing them out most mornings to just spend the day outside so that when we do plant them, they're not going to get too shocked. Although they haven't spent an overnight outside yet, so we're hoping that that will be okay. But really, yes, just with the cabbages here, we're going to cover them with a fleece, or we could have maybe covered them with mesh if we weren't so worried about the temperatures. And that's just going to protect them from the temperatures and also from pigeons or things that might want to eat these tasty little young plants. We're hoping to actually build a hardening off area. This is the north side of the polytunnel. It's the cooler side and it gets a bit of shade from the polytunnel. So we really think that this ditch that's along the back of the polytunnel here could become a permanent hardening off space so that we can really more easily bring the plants out and get them ready to be put out into the market garden.
Good morning everyone, hope you're all well. Another beautiful day here in Aberdeenshire, and Rosa and I are back out in the market garden. This is where we're spending most of our time at the moment, in our CSA market garden. It's a busy time of the year, so we're always thinking what have we got to do to be able to produce these vegetables for our local community. So today, as Rosa was just saying, we've been bringing out our young cabbages and a few other plug plants that we're going to be putting out in the garden to harden off so that they're ready to face up to the harsh reality of being outside of the polytunnel. Then we're going to get some peas in the ground, hopefully. Started cultivating the Monge 2 beds a few days ago, and so we've got to build a structure for them to climb up, so just something quite simple out of some scrap chicken wire that we should have around the farm. Get those peas planted. My mum and Andy are over in what we now call goose wood, what used to be goat wood. They are retrofitting an old duck house which I built. It was one of my first projects actually when I first moved here 8 years ago. I built this duck house out of scrap material, and it's basically a bit knackered, and Mum and Andy are trying to rejuvenate it a bit, and we're going to hopefully use it as a goose house over in goose wood, so that when the geese aren't on rotation in the goose house, the portable house, they can have a permanent house to live in within this little silver pasture system that we've dedicated for them. And of course, one of the big jobs that we've got to get on with is creating the new beds over in what is plot 7. Is that right, Rosa?
Yep.
Because this new plot, as we were talking about in Farm Vlog 44, is a new area, and we've had the geese grazing on there. We're going to move the geese off there today so that we can then get the BCS in and start forming the new beds. So very exciting, a lot of hard work ahead of us. I hope we can move the geese okay. So we're going to move the geese off of there, get them over to goose wood once we've got an enclosure set up, and then we can start working on the new plots. There's always other things to do, like tarping veg plots, the polytunnel beds watered and tarped. We're going to start putting some landscape fabric down on plot 6, which is another brassica plot where we've already got our Brussels sprouts, because we've got kale ready to come out quite soon. We've had a great downpour of rain over the last day, thankfully, for the first time in weeks, so the soil is nice and hydrated. So this is a perfect time to put some landscape fabric down or if you've got any mulching to do, get that done now. Always should try and mulch while the ground is wet. So we're going to do that so that that is ready for planting out the kale next week. Yeah, and the tatties. These tatties, we didn't get them planted at the end of last week, so they should be ready just to chuck into the ground, and then we can cover them up and know that they're planted.
It's a busy day.
It is a busy day. But beautiful weather, love this job, we love what we do, and I hope you guys are enjoying watching us on our journey here at our market garden and permaculture farm. Alright, so we're finally managing to get our potatoes planted today. This plot we're choosing to plant them in has been a little bit of a troublesome plot for us over the last couple of years. 2 years ago we planted some chamomile here, and 2 years later we've still got chamomile here. Last year we had our onion crop here, and unfortunately it got slightly engulfed by the chamomile that had regrown, along with the raspberry suckers and mint creeping buggers that are coming out of this tree row. This is quite a challenging plot to keep maintained. So our initial plan for this plot this year had been just to either cover it with a tarp and try and kill off as much of the chamomile and some of the other suckers that are coming in. We've got problems of roseberry willow herb in this area of the garden. We're going to try and cover it all up with a tarp and forget about it, or at least sow a green manure and try and, just leave it alone, let it do its thing, and try and bring it back to order when we had time. But we thought, why don't we plant some tatties there this year instead? Reason being, we need potatoes for the home, also for our veg box customers, especially as it's going to possibly be harder to get organic potatoes at the supermarkets and things during the coronavirus. So Rose is just dropping in the potatoes every 12 inches or so. This is a variety called Pink Gypsy. We've been planting this for a good number of years now. It's one of our favorites. It's a lovely pink and mottled white potato that seems to be pretty versatile in the way it can be cooked and eaten. So we're going to do 5 rows of tatties here, and then we've had this idea, considering that this is mostly going to be for home use. We're going to put some of these potatoes hopefully in the veg box, but overall we're kind of claiming this plot as ours this year because we made a bit of a mess of it over the last couple of years. We feel we can maybe experiment a little bit with an idea that we've had. There are a lot of videos out there about growing in wood chip or using wood chip. Got people like Justin Rhodes, who obviously is an advocate for laying down wood chip where you want to have a vegetable garden, bringing in his chickens, etc., to help accelerate the composting process of that wood chip. Slightly inspired by that, we've decided that we might try bringing in a huge amount of wood chip, and the idea is that we're going to plant the tatties as normal. So you saw me the other day creating the furrows. We're going to cover these potatoes up, bring in all that wood chip, and we're going to cover this entire plot here, and we're doing that for a few reasons. One, we're hoping it's going to act as a bit of a mulch for some of the troublesome plants that we have growing in this soil. But two, what we're really trying to do is to bring more fertility back into the plot. We're going to plant the potatoes. We're going to bring in a lot of wood chip and apply that very thickly. We're going to hopefully harvest the potatoes. After the harvest, we're going to bring in our chickens with electric netting and keep the chickens in here. And of course they'll be scratching through the wood chip and adding their own manure. Then we're going to take the chickens out and we're going to tarp it. Next year we're hoping to maybe sow a green manure in here. Harvest that green manure for many purposes. And then hopefully, after all of those processes, we're going to have some beautiful soil here. Basically trying to make compost where we need it, in situ, in these beds. Because a big problem for us is having enough compost to be able to practice a no-dig approach. And so we thought, how can we grow crops and import organic material to this garden and create compost where we need it rather than somewhere else, ferrying it up the hill or buying it in. How can we do a kind of slow approach to creating compost right here in the garden? So we'll see. Some of you out there might be pulling your hair out at the screen right now and saying, nah, it'll never work. And maybe it's going to fail. You know, I do think we're going to have to get the wood chip very deep to suppress the weeds. We're also going to have to be patient for that wood chip to start breaking down, but of course hopefully we can accelerate that with the use of animals and animal manure. What do you think, Rosa?
Yeah, I think if we have that kind of amount of wood chip on the beds this year, and also with it, you know, if it gets quite wet as well, and then by the end of the year after the chickens have been on it, to cover it in a tarp, even if we don't get the opportunity to sow a green manure or anything, just the heat of the tarp as well.
Yeah.
I think it'll make really beautiful soil here.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic, but I'm always optimistic.
So that's the potatoes going in. Rosa's already put in 2 rows. We've got another 3 to go, and then we'll cover those up. As soon as we can, we'll bring in the wood chip. I don't know when that's going to be. It's going to be quite a few trailer loads of wood chip to cover this plot. So that's the majority of the potatoes covered up. Just been back filling the soil on top of the potatoes in the trenches. We're dealing with a lot of grass. We haven't managed to get it all out. We dug out a lot of the docks. This plot's basically going to have to fare for itself, but hopefully if we can get enough wood chip on, that's really going to help the situation. But quite an experiment to see if we can get this plot back into use and also increase the fertility of the soil. Alright, so Rosa and I have come out to put up some electric netting around this area that we're going to hopefully move the geese to today, that we call Goose Wood. Oh look what's behind me here. So here is the refurbished duck house turned into the new goose house, the goose house that my mum and I made last year. That's their portable house for when they're following the goats around the Westfield silver pasture. When we want them here in Goose Wood, we wanted something that we didn't have to move around, so we've got this. So yeah, so this area we're in, Goose Wood, immediately here at the new house is a small silver pasture system. You can see either these trees which we pollarded a year ago, which will be for tree hay, and we've also planted trees last year as well, and then there's grazing in between. So we're going to start the netting here running along this track that we use for the BCS, and then we're going to take it running up the side of one of the ditches that we have. This is one of the ditches which seems to be a bit dry at the moment. A few days ago this had water running down it, so that's a bit weird. Anyway, we've got a ditch here which takes the overflow from our big top pond. So we're going to run the goose netting up this ditch, and then it's going to take a right and it's going to go above those silver birches there and along and back down to where Rosa is. Quite a decent size of run for the geese. In the future we're going to actually give them a much bigger area and we're going to use permanent fencing, but for now we can just use this portable electric poultry netting. And then so once we've got this up, we've got to try and get the geese all the way here. In fact, I can see them from here. So there's the geese right there. You see the white in the distance? So they've got to come all the way from there and get them into this new pen. So there's some nice grass in there that they can eat and a new house to try out. Pleased with the build, Mum?
Yes, it's gone exactly to plan. Very pleased. Let's go and get them.
Alright, so we're pretty much ready to try and move the geese from here at the market garden. They've been doing a great job at removing the grass for us to make it easier to plough in a couple of days. Alright, you lot ready to move? First goose poo. Well, that went a bit easier than we thought it would. They acted very well, did exactly what we wanted them to. And so now they're here on fresh grass. And they're just probably going to be strolling around, having a look where they are, seeing where they're allowed to go and where they're not allowed to go. And then we'll have to see if we can get them in their new house tonight, which might take a little bit of cajoling. Alright, so that's the geese in. I don't think we're going to get those peas planted after all.
Gonna do it in the morning.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we get everything ticked off the list and sometimes we don't.
I feel like often jobs take longer than we think they're going to take, but that's just because we want to do them thoroughly and do them properly, and
that's alright. We'll get the peas done tomorrow. We'll start the day building the structure for them to climb. The geese are in. We'll go to see if we can get the geese into their house tonight, which is going to be the challenge, I think. So we'll see how that goes. And we're just going to go and get the goats just now. So, and bring them down from their day of grazing in the north field. Alright folks, I hope you enjoyed today's vlog. Thanks for watching, hope everyone's well out there, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!
See ya!
Thank you.